Childhood, adolescent, adulthood, and elderhood. Welcome to Beyondhood, where we go beyond elderhood, one chat at a time.
Episode 2. First, I want to apologize for the massive delay of this episode. The day I recorded this episode in September was the day I received a phone call from my sister in Hong Kong, sharing with me my grandpa was in the intensive care unit in the hospital. Within 48 hours, I was on my flight back to Hong Kong, and the following 2 months was a chapter that I will never forget. My grandpa is now peacefully in heaven, and I promise one day there'll be another story on that. Today, I have 2 Beyonders, John and Pat O'Sullivan, whom I have the pleasure to meet through my dear friend Jenny while I visited her in Greystones in Ireland. Both John and Pat are 76 years old, and they hold the best dinner party. I pass out on the sofa because of all the great food that they cook for us and all the yummy drinks and all the fun in the conversation. For real. Around 12 a.m. and they kept going till 2 a.m. and could have continued. John and Pat's spirit and determination to adding more life to their years instead of just simply adding years to their life. And the long-distance relationship and long-lasting love are what draw me into interviewing them. Are you ready? Let's go. I am here today with John and Pat, and we're going to start the Beyondhood podcast too. First of all, what is your name and where are you guys from?
My name is Johnny O'Sullivan. I'm originally from Waterville, County Kerry, and we now live in Wicklow.
My name is Pat O'Sullivan. I am originally from Dublin, and I am 76 years old.
I am also 76 years old.
We always say into your 70s, into your new young age, you know. Now you live until 100 at least. Thank you for being on the Beyondhood podcast. What were your childhood and adolescent like?
Yeah, well, I was born in Waterville in County Kerry, a small village. We lived in the outskirts. My dad was the hall porter of the local hotel. We had a very simple childhood, and we didn't have a lot, but neither had any of the people around us. We weren't poor. We had plenty to eat, plenty to drink. We were always clothed. We were able to go to school, and I think we had a fantastic childhood. Went to local national school, then we went to the technical school because it would have been too expensive to go to the Christian Brothers or the nuns. I won a scholarship from the local school to Galway, and then I subsequently won a scholarship in Galway to go to college in England.
I was born in Dublin, but we moved to County Louth afterwards. My father was a chef, and he moved around quite a bit, so we obviously moved with him. So he never cooked at home because my mum did all the cooking. So I was in Dundalk when I was 6, left Dundalk when I was 6 and came to live in Skerries, and then we came to live in Dublin when I was about 9 years old, and there I stayed until I got married in Ballymun in Dublin. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. You know, we had to learn to get on with people a lot because we were in different places.
How did you guys meet?
We met down in Waterville. My mother is also from Waterville, just outside Waterville, in a headland just outside Waterville, County Kerry. And I spent all my summer holidays there with my grandparents from a very early age, actually from a small child. Myself and my sister from Dublin and cousins from Galway. The 4 of us spent our summer holidays with our grandparents. And that's how we met in Waterville. I used to see him answering Mass quite young, from about 12 onwards, I suppose, when I started noticing boys. I noticed him answering Mass himself at the local church because there was only the one church, a small church. And then we met, I think, eventually at a football match. Yeah, met at a football match and made arrangements to meet that night in the local dance hall.
How old were you guys? So did you still need to go to Leicester?
No, he didn't go yet.
No.
It was that
It was
year.
that year, 1965.
Yeah, that he went
I went to Leicester that September.
So you had a long distance relationship?
We had for 5 years. And I was in Germany for 2 of those years because I lived in Germany as well. I was au pair in Germany for about 2 years in Frankfurt. And you look after the children. You only get pocket money looking after their children when they're working.
Yeah.
Because they have the day free. You know, you can do what you like during the day, go to college or whatever. And you just, as long as you're there for the children.
Au pair. I did some research on this. The au pair host family relationship is a two-way exchange where the au pair provides childcare services and the host family welcome and support them to experience their country, improving their language skill and enjoying the culture. What made you go to Germany?
My sister had been to France as an au pair, and I wanted to go au pair as well, and I just picked Germany. I met the man, he came over, he interviewed me, came and met my parents and everything.
How did you maintain that long-distance relationship back then?
Letters.
Letters in those days. And
Yeah, that's all it was letters.
Do you still keep all the letters?
I have them someplace, yes. Yeah. You have my letters?
I do, yeah.
All of them?
I wouldn't think so. We've moved so many times. We downsized and
No phone call?
No phone call.
no phones. No.
Oh, so how often do you see each other?
Well, it was to see each other in the summer holidays and Christmas holidays. I would come home from Leicester, fly into Dublin, and my first port of call was Pat's house.
It was my parents' house because I was there for 1.5 years before I came home at all.
Once a year?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Now, like, you always WhatsApp, and if my boyfriend didn't WhatsApp me for a day, I'll be like, where have you been?
Yes.
Well, the times have changed, and there was...
and phone calls in from Germany or from wherever would have been very expensive.
Yeah. Oh my God. 5 years of long distance relationship with writing letters? Oh gosh. We really need to stop our insecurity when you cannot reach your significant other for a day or two only. How about you, John?
Our contract, because we were, sponsored by the government as it was at the time, we had to work during our holidays. We got our 2 weeks holidays in August as everybody else did. But for the other time when we were on holidays, we were actually in the factories working. But it was work experience, and our grant was the equivalent of our week's wages, which was small at the time, but it was sufficient. And our accommodation and college fees were all looked after by the company. I did a little bit of work experience with a machine building company, but normally we went in September, October, came home at Christmas, back, had a week at Easter, then back to the exams, and we would finish the end of June, and then I would work in the factory July and August, and then back again the end of September to college.
Crazy,
What was your career like, John?
Gaeltacht Éireann, as they were at the time, were an Irish-speaking organisation. I'm a native Irish speaker, and they had factories all over the rural parts of Ireland: Kerry, Cork, Waterford, Mayo, Galway and Donegal. So we were selected to be supervisors, but in Galway, I got the opportunity to go to Leicester and do a full-time degree in textile engineering. And then I came back and I was involved in factories in Tourmakeedy, in Cork, and in Donegal. Yeah, well, when I came back from Leicester, I was based in Tourmakeedy in the knitting factory. And there was a factory in Cork where they needed somebody to be a senior supervisor. They asked me would I go and do that. I did that. And the head man with Gaeltacht at the time, a man by the name of Cathal McGowney, since dead, God be good to him, asked me would I meet some Canadian people who had a wish to build a factory in the Gaeltacht in Donegal. We were coming up to summer holidays. Pat was pregnant with our first son, and he had nobody else to go, so I volunteered. I had a sports jacket and a pair of trousers. I didn't even have a suit, and I joined them, and we did a tour of Germany, Switzerland, France, and Italy. We built up a project, myself and a Canadian, an English-Canadian man, did the report for Gaeltacht about what the new factory would need by way of machinery and people. And when it was all done, I was sitting in my job in Cork. Our first son was born. And I got a call from this man saying the Canadians are quite happy to come to Donegal, but the proviso is that you would be the project manager for Donegal. And that's how I finished up with the company in Donegal.
So what was textile back then like?
Well, Ireland had a huge textile industry. The old traditional textile business was knitting and weaving. In Ireland, it wasn't that different. There was a lot of knitting. Nearly every small town had either a weaving mill or a knitting mill. Cork was a big textile centre at the time. Dublin was huge. Galway, Mayo, Donegal had a lot of textiles. And when we set the factory up in Donegal, we had an associate sister company in Bradford in England. And at that time, Bradford, Yorkshire, was woolen mainly, and Lancashire would have been mainly cotton manufacturing. But there was a huge number of people employed, right from raw wool manufacture to yarn spinning to cloth manufacture. There were several suit companies here in Ireland at the time, several knitting companies, and also Dublin and Cork had hosiery companies where when nylons and then subsequently tights came on, there was a huge manufacturing base here. Killarney had one of the biggest manufacturers of tights and stockings called Pretty Polly.
I did some research about the textile industry in the 60s in Ireland. And I found that this book called 60 Ireland, Reshaping the Economy, State and Society, 1957 to 1973, by Mary E. Daly. In the book, she said, in the mid-1960s, Irish manufacturing industry, especially textile, had a significantly better growth record than agriculture. Output and export of textile and hosiery were growing so well ahead of the target. New foreign-owned firms were making a significant contribution to export earning. And this would explain what John had experienced in his working year.
All of that is gone, no longer. Very little textiles in Ireland now. Couple of boutique, bespoke people that do very high quality silk, wool. Donegal still has a traditional weaving base and they do some very sophisticated cloths. But by and large, Ireland and indeed the UK have very little textile manufacturing.
You have seen the peak and the low. So how did it happen, and how did you feel from seeing, oh, this is so many, this is going on, and as you go on and things are kind of disappearing?
Well, I think, there was a cycle in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Any kind of factory manufacturing that could provide employment was supported by the government. The idea supported the English-speaking areas. The people I was with was Irish-speaking. It became Údarás na Gaeltacht, and there was a huge effort. Textiles and other engineering projects were brought to the Irish-speaking areas. We were able to manufacture at a base that we could sell it in any market and make a profit on it. Then in later years, the bigger retail people, Dunnes Stores, Pennies and stuff like that, could buy product in Morocco, Madagascar, Mauritius and subsequently China at 1/3 of the price that we could manufacture it for an island. So you can't push water up a hill. And the industry declined and IT became the big. IT and pharmaceuticals replaced the textile industries. My final work was with a warehousing company distributing carpets and wooden floors. Then I was a building manager in a project in the city. And then I moved on, and my final job was as a security customer care man in a retail mall.
We hear John's story of his career, textile. I would like to see what was Pat's story like. How did you get to become a hair hostess, and what made you stop, and then what happened afterward?
When I came back from Germany, I obviously had German, so I it helped me to get into Aer Lingus. I applied for Aer Lingus and I got into Aer Lingus. And I worked as an air hostess then in Aer Lingus for about 2 years. I think I left it in 1970 to get married. But when I left Aer Lingus in 1970, I could not go back working full-time as a married woman. So
According to the Irish Congress of Trade Union, the marriage bar requires single women to resign from their job upon getting married and disqualify married women for applying for vacancy in the public sector. In 1870, women first became public servant, and then they received permanent contract in 1893. Gosh, that took 23 years. But their contract would terminate on marriage. If women were forced to retire on marriage, then they would not remain in the service long enough to raise very high in the salary scale. And this is why the government did it. The marriage bar was primarily a cost-saving initiative. Also, the bar reflected social attitude that it was a husband's duty to support his wife, and a married woman's place was in the home. While private and semi-state employers were not legally obliged to apply the marriage bar, it was widespread practice to include a clause in the letters of appointment to female workers that their employment end once they married. For example, Aer Lingus, which is the company that Pat worked for, and two of the largest employers, Jacobs Biscuits and Guinness Brewery. Thanks God, the marriage ban was abolished in 1973 for the civil service and wider public and semi-state sector, based on the recommendation of the Commission on the Status of Women and a shift in public opinion on working wife. And in 1977, the marriage bar was finally abolished in the private sector, when European law made it illegal to discriminate employment on the grounds of sex and marital status. While marriage bars were commonplace throughout Europe, America, and beyond from the late 1800s, Ireland was one of the last countries to lift bans on hiring married women and dismissing women on marriage. Guys, we're listening to first-hand history, as Ireland was one of the last countries of having women alive today who were personally affected by the marriage bar, and Pat is one of them.
So that's it. I just could not go back to work with Aer Lingus. We were in Westport then, and then we went down to Cork, and we were married for 2 years before we had any family. Anywhere we went to work in the factories that Johnny was looking after at that time, it would have been a small rural area, and possibly it would only have been the factory there. So I couldn't really go to work in the factory being the boss's wife. So for 2 years, I didn't do that much. And then the children, Rory came along then after 2 years. So I had him to look after. Then Neve came the following year. And so then I had 2 children. So I spent my time looking after the family. And then Brendan came about 3 years later. So yeah, I looked after the family. Stay at home mum.
Being a home mom is a full-time job.
Yeah, it really was. Too, with 3 children, 3 small children.
So when did the law come about to say that married women can work again? And then is it when you go back?
I left in 1970. In 1973, they changed the law. So I could have come back after 1973. Yeah. But at that time, the children were born. So I didn't go back then. I stayed at home.
How old were you when you finished?
I was 72.
Oh, it's only 4 years ago that you retired. How about you, Pat?
I think I must have been about 70, I think, when I retired. I retired a few years early because I was a receptionist in a building and the building was knocked down. And the company I worked for, they had nowhere else for me to go. They could have. So when that building closed, I decided to retire, and I was 70 at that stage.
Yeah, so what kept you going for so long? What was your favorite part of keep working?
Well, I think to keep working was out of necessity. We needed money to keep going. My corporate pension didn't pay a lot. I waited to get onto my state pension. We downsized, and we had enough money to spend, to enjoy ourselves, to run a car, to go on holidays. And we also have grandchildren now, and we've less time now than we had when I was working.
We briefly talk about the pension. Share that story of how they feel.
A whole lot of companies at the time, we were probably progressive insofar as the companies had started pension schemes for our retirement. We put a few bob into it, the companies put money into it. But the final deal was that we would retire on a respectable pension. When I left the company, I got a sum of money out of it, but the remaining pension fund was no longer there. So I was only one of many people who didn't get a pension. And, you know, all you can do, if you were a very, very big company, the government would have probably supported you. If you were a small company, the legal costs of getting people to represent you, to chase something that you didn't know whether it was there or not there. And I just said, that's it, let's get on with it.
So easy said than done, but that's just such a positive attitude that you had. How do you feel? And you were like, that's okay?
Yeah, well, I could have got a gun and gone and shot a couple of people and maybe got great satisfaction, but that wasn't the way forward. My wife was working, we both had our health, and we said we could survive, maybe not at the level we would have liked to, but, you know, other people were less fortunate than us. Other people were more fortunate. We took our line, we stuck at it, and we're here, and we're still together. We have a lot of friends. We enjoy ourselves, and I've no complaints.
Wow, that's actually a very impressive story to listen to. How did you feel about that, Pat?
Yeah, there was nothing you could do. I mean, the money was gone, the pension was gone. So the only thing you could do was to keep working and try and build up a bit of saving. I had a small pension from the job I was in at the time, but I'd only been in it for about 17 years. So I hadn't got, it wasn't that large. You just have to keep going. I mean, there's...
And I think that's the attitude that keep going. We got to the story of you guys met and then see each other at a football game and then went to a dance. Then when did you come back, John? And when did you propose? And how do you know Pat is the one?
Pat's mum was from Kerry. I tell this story, which is not true. And she was affectionately known as Granny Doll. She was Pat's mum. A great friend, a fantastic woman. And she privately said to me that Pat always wanted to get married, to whom I didn't know, but her mum said that she'd like Pat to have a Kerry man as a husband, and she gave me a small sum of money, and I agreed. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. No, Pat and myself were good friends. Pat was in Dublin, I was in Mayo. I was up and down to Dublin. And again, it would have to be associated with rugby on the 14th of March, 1970. Can remember it well. The reason I can remember it well is I got engaged on that Saturday, but we were in a pub after a rugby match, which I'll tell you a story about in a minute. And I left the pub for a little while, and I came back, and I had asked Pat's mum if she would give me Pat, and she said she'd be delighted to. I never got the money, but that's not important. And we got engaged on the 14th of March. And the other significant thing in that day was Wales came to Ireland as raging favourites to the old Lansdowne Road. And Ireland beat them for the very first time, 14 points to 0. And a pal of mine who was in college in Newcastle from City of Derry, who got excommunicated from rugby union because he played rugby league, but his name was Kenny Goodall, and he scored the winning try that Ireland beat Wales. Very significant.
And how do you know he was the one?
I didn't know he was going to propose that night, but we had been together for a good few years at this stage, you know, and you just know when who is the one and who's not the one. But as I say, we'd known each other for quite some time at this stage, so. Yeah, but I didn't know he was going to propose that day. No, I didn't know he'd ask my mother either for my hand until later on.
Were you worried she was going to say no?
Well, I wouldn't be presumptuous, but I always thought if I told a good story, to Pat's mum, that she would say, well, bird in the hand is better than two in the bush.
So how long have you guys been together now?
53. We're married 53 years, the 3rd of this coming October 2023.
We got engaged in March of 1970, but we got married in October of 1970. So it was a short engagement. There was no point in making a long engagement. We decided to get married, so we got married.
And what's the secret of staying together for 50 years from your eyes?
From my eyes, and I've seen it many times since with life's experience, I'm the person that Pat met, fell in love with, warts and all. Pat accepted me for who I was. I'm not perfect, far from it. We live independently within our own minds. We live together in the relationship we have together, which is fantastic. And again, Pat is the lady I met. I never made any. She was perfect. Didn't need to change her. She's a great support. I would never have achieved some of the things I achieved without Pat's support. And we get together. We have differences. And we're still good friends.
There's some of the things that because of Pat's support you achieved. What were they?
Well, I spent quite a bit of time away from home when the kids were younger because we were building the factory in Donegal, which I refer to. I could be away at weekends. I could be away for a week here and there. And at one stage, I was 12 weeks in Canada.
How old were the kids?
Well, we only had 2 at the time. There were 3 and 2.
Wow, 12 weeks in Canada.
Yeah.
How did you feel being so far away from home?
It was difficult, but it was part. I had to find out the workings of the Canadian company, who they were, what they were doing. I was exposed to a lot of new management ideas and a lot of manufacturing ideas. And, again, it was an opportunity for me from a selfish point of view, but Pat accepted it and said, she stood by me and supported me.
Oh, how about you, Pat? After listening to that,
I do agree with not trying to change the person. Maybe a little bit, but not to change the person too much. Actually, the person that you marry, because that's obviously one of the reasons you marry them, because of who they are. Yeah, we get on well together. As I say, we've been together now for a good few years. So, and I have friends. When I worked, the last job I was in, I had myself and the girlfriends, we used to go away on holidays. And that would have been the first time I would have went away on my own, but I just met this group of ladies and we used to go to Spain and all those places on holidays, and it was great, actually. Yeah, it was good to do something, different and something outside the home as well on my own. That is a good thing to do, I think. Go away on holidays with the girls is a good idea.
Nowadays, a lot of people, my friends, including myself, I'm sure there were ups and downs in the relationship. Then when it was low, how do you deal with it? Well,
I think what you call it, if you give a personal commitment to a colleague in a husband-wife relationship, or to friends that you play rugby and football with and you say you're going to turn up for training, we were conditioned, not beaten over the head with it, that show loyalty, show respect. Nothing is easy. You have to put in the hours. No gain, no pain, as they say in rugby now. And we accepted what we had. It was worth looking after. On the highs, it was fabulous. On the lows, it was difficult. But the day after the lows, it was again fabulous. So you have to apply yourself. Nothing is easy. I have seen nothing in life that, if you value it, that it's easy. There's a little bit of effort goes in. There's a continuous effort goes into any relationship.
How about you, Pat?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it can't always be plain sailing. I mean, 53 years together, there's bound to be ups and downs, but you just go through, you learn to take the ups and the downs and you work your way through it. It can be difficult at times, but you just have to do it. There was no other way other than working our way through it.
So how did it work? Let's say you had a fight. Do you just talk it out?
Talk it out? No, just always talk it out. But we worked through it all the same, and we came out the other end of it. So It never lasted very long anyway.
Oh. How about when you guys have kids? Like, what are the relationship become? How many kids do you have?
We have two boys and a girl, a boy first and a girl then a boy. Of course, it made a difference. Child number one gets more attention because there's more time. Child number two has to share the time with child number one. And child number three was a little bit later. So the other two, particularly his sister, looked after the younger. We have a super relationship with the kids. They've all been high achievers. We never decided that they should be rugby players or football players or doctors or dentists or anything like that. They took career paths. We supported them. Our youngest son is in the film business, and God be good to my mum. She thought that was not a great job, and she used to say to him, Brendan, when are you going to get a real job? When Dad died, he was the young fella that went down. He stayed with her in Kerry, looked after, my dad looked after my mum particularly well, and Brendan used to light the fire, put out the ashes, do the shopping for her, and obviously was company. But she was very fond of all of them. But I think particularly Brendan in the finish. They all had respect. It was very funny. We have a story when they were at school. They had three grannies. And the teacher asked us at a parent-teacher meeting, how come the kids have three grannies? There must be one of them an aunt or something. I said, no. The Granny Murphy was my grandmother. So she was their great-grandmother, and she lived to be 100.
Wow.
And then there was Granny Doyle, who was Pat's mum. And that's what she was affectionately referred to. And my mum's name was Bridget, and she became Granny Bridget. So that's why they had three grannies.
Wow. So what have been afterward? Like, what are your greatest passion now? What do you do now with your time?
We have this cooking regime. We have a small one-bedroom apartment. During COVID, Pat is a far superior lady in the kitchen and the pots and pans than I am, but we used to cook a day about. So what we decided in after COVID is we would cook a week about, and we had a meeting on a Saturday, and we put 21 recipes together, 7 breakfasts, 7 lunches, 7 dinners. We did the shopping for that. We have a couple of signature dinners, one of which you had on Friday night, and that fills up time. We go and see the grandchildren. We take them to the bus occasionally. We babysit. Well, they mind us now. We don't mind them. We always have something to do. We do a lot of walking. We've been looking, and so far as this year, we went to visit our son for 2 months in Australia, and we're going to repeat it again in a few years' time. If we have legs and hands and heads to do it, and hopefully we will. We get up in the morning, have our breakfast, we walk, weather permitting, every day. We take holidays, we visit our son around the corner, and our daughter is 3 kilometres down the road. She had a dog until just about a year ago. Unfortunately, the dog died. He used to stay with us if she was away, and also while she was working, I would go and walk the dog. But we always have something to do. We're going somewhere. We're coming from somewhere. We go to the theatre. We go for a drink occasionally. We eat at home quite a bit. And like you saw on Friday night, we entertain at home. And we have Neve and her friend Fiona, who we refer to as a lifetime colleague. They come, not at a particular interval. It could be a month, it could be 6 months. But since COVID, we get together in groups. We watch rugby on the television. Last night, Ireland were playing South Africa in the World Cup group qualifier, and our son and Pat and myself watched it, and we had a lovely evening. A few beers, a bit to eat, and we enjoyed it.
You guys loved to entertain, because we came down and we were the one, me and Jenny were the one who were like too sleepy, and you guys were still going at it. How do you have so much energy?
We don't get up too early in the morning now anymore. And I think walking is a good exercise. And I do aqua aerobic days a week. I think exercise is essential, particularly as you get older too. It keeps the limbs moving and everything. And I try to do crosswords. I like doing crosswords too. It keeps the brain active. And as Johnny says, we go to, I love live gigs. Last year we went to see the Eagles and Garth Brooks in the 1 year, and we've been to see Bruce Springsteen I don't know how many times. And we go to the local theatre too. Now they would be not so well known, the people who would appear there, but we have a lovely local theatre, which is great, and we go there as well. We go down to Kerry as often as we can. You know, it's a long journey though now. That's the only thing. It's 5 hours on driving to get to Kerry, which makes it, you know, you'd go there when the days are longer, not in the wintertime while they're short. And yeah, we have the grandchildren too. We look after them sometimes. And, you know, we go around to our son. Every Friday afternoon, we go around to our son and we have pancakes and a glass of wine, because that's he makes pancakes for the girls for the dinner that night. So we join them for a glass of wine.
How do you keep your friendship now? Do you still talk to a lot of friends? Like, are they in the neighborhood? Who do you hang out the most with?
Well, the most we'd hang out with would be family, and together we do, as I said, a lot of walking. In walking, particularly in the seafront, we meet people and everybody talks to everybody. It's different to the city. We don't know everybody's name. We'll know a lot of faces. Good morning, good evening. Anybody that has a dog that comes over and the dog obviously doesn't say good morning, but you know that he's friendly, we'd pat him in the head. We'd find his name, what age he is. Some are thoroughbreds and some are not thoroughbreds, but still beautiful animals and things like that. There's always another way. Somebody says something, does something. There's a new conversation. We have a small circle of friends. We do a lot of communication by phone with people that either we knew through work or knew through phone. And the other sad thing as well, which is life's reality, is we've been to a fair number of funerals of friends of ours who've gone to the other side. Despite believing that there's another person there, even including putting a mobile phone in a coffin recently, some people said that they call you from the other side. We haven't had a call back yet. One of the great things we've done, and lockdown, and our friend Jenny, who is one of the reasons we're talking to you, Nicole, we made new friends and we called them COVID friends. It's a terrible title for that. We're on a first floor apartment. We're on a balcony. The particular year of COVID was a very good year of weather, and we weren't, from an advice point of view by the Department of Health, you know, stay local, don't be mixing with people. We just sat on the balcony and chatted to them. Jenny in particular was a tremendous somebody to bounce off. She was our son and daughter did the shopping for us, but Jenny offered to help. And once COVID left, Jenny came down to us. She's an exceptional culinary skilled lady. She did different dishes and dropped them down to us. We had dinner with herself and her dad in her apartment. They've had dinner down with us. I have a, not unique, but a fairly good collection of whiskies. And Jenny likes whiskey. All the girls on Friday night liked to sample whiskey. And Jenny's dad loves whiskey. So I suppose through the medium of whiskey, we'll give a little bit of credit. But Jenny's a special lady, tremendously positive, has a few health issues, but never complains. I never heard her complain about anything. She goes down swimming at 6 o'clock in the morning. Must be bloody horrific, the cold, but does Jenny mind? No, that's Jenny.
The legendary Jenny. I met Jenny while I was backpacking in Africa. I consider myself pretty adventurous, but she's always full of spirit and surprise. And FYI, she's that girl with the 2 belly button on the Graham Norton show. The friendship between John, Pat, and Jenny is the prime example of how valuable to have intergenerational connection, to share your knowledge, share your experience, and hobby with each other. Want to have one like that? Join and explore Beyondhood. Sign up link is on the bio.
And how do you guys keep your good spirit? Because not just physically, you're very well, keep it about, but mentally, like your spirit is so vibrant. And how do you keep it going?
Well, I think physical as well as mental, like going for walks. And we are very lucky where we live. We have so much greenery around us, and we have the sea just down the road from us as well. And I think it's very good to go walking by the sea. I really love it. We try to go every day along the seafront. And as I say, with the grandchildren too, I mean, they're 10 and 8, and the other little boy is 8 years old, and he's in Australia. But they keep you alive too. They keep you going, and children just, particularly the little one, she's no filter. She just asks whatever comes into her head, you know. And I think the grandchildren are great to keep your mind active. You know, they're young. They have active mind themselves, and they ask the questions.
If there's one piece of advice, what do you wish the younger generation would know now, and seeing how things have changed?
I think, in fairness, the generation that is now 2023, I think they're high achievers, very positive. They have far, far more challenges than we had at their age. Unfortunately, I think our media is so negative, and I think these young people are so positive to overcome that. People have been like, every morning we switch on the radio, there's a new scam. There's somebody trying to whittle money out of old people. People are trying to cheat. I watch a lot of sport. And what disappoints me, if I have one disappointment and I don't have many, is people have achieved things by cheating. And I think that's terrible. But I think the generation today is as good as or better than we were. They have a totally different number of challenges. You were saying we have lived together for 53 years and hopefully many more years together. Youngsters today have different perceptions, different wants, different pressures. Some are in long-term relationships, some are in less long relationships. But I would never judge. They're in that situation. They make a decision. I'm sure they don't take it lightly. I'm sure they don't do it for fun. But, you know, necessity, pressures, financial, health. I believe now that the society we live in is a pressure cooker. And everybody is under pressure. We're fortunate we're not in that cooker anymore. We're outside it. We have our health. We have enough to keep going. We've both calculated that if we live to be 95, we have enough money in our savings. If we live to be 96, Nicole, I look for money for you.
And how about you?
My advice to young people is to try anything, not to be afraid to try anything, and to be themselves. And don't be afraid to be yourself either.
One question I always ask is, if you look back now for your 76 year of life, is there anything that if you could do it one more time, what would it be?
Well, my dad had a great analogy, I suppose it was. Like the man was a national school educated man, but he had life's experience. He said, you come to a crossroads, there's left, right, and straight ahead. If it has no signpost and you make a decision and you go left, well, you can never go back to see what was straight ahead or what was to the right. So to me, I have no regrets what I've done. Would I do things differently? I don't think so. Would I have done things better? I think yes. Would I have, spent more time doing sport than work? I don't know. But where I am today, and I'm looking out the window at the green, I have achieved a lot individually. I've achieved a lot with Pat and with our family. Could I have achieved more? I let other people judge.
That's so wise. That would be like the title of this podcast. Left, right, center. How about you?
Yeah, the only thing, I never liked school. I didn't like school, and I don't think I paid enough attention while I was at school. I think if maybe I would if I was given a chance again. No, never. I was educated by the nuns, and I'm afraid most of the nuns did not get on at all, actually. So I think, that would be the only thing, to pay more attention at school.
Yeah, so earlier you mentioned there was this place that like you get to do another course with regarding your age, or
yes, that was when I was long married at this stage, and the children had actually grown up. It was run by the government. It was called FOSS, which means grow in Irish. Yeah, and anybody who had left the workplace for some time and wanted to get back into the workplace, you could do courses in the government sponsored courses for you, and you actually got paid for it as well. You got money as well. So yes, it was a very, very good idea, great idea. I did 2 of them. The first course I was in, it was mainly people of my own age. Then I would have been in my 50s, I think, actually at that stage, and we had course to do, and we had tutors in the course, and every one of us that was in that course wanted to be in their course. And the teachers were amazed because they said that, whereas we went there to learn something and to get back into the work, and they could not believe it, that every one of us was really interested in what was going on. We were more mature at that stage, and we wanted to get back into the workplace. We had been out of it for a while. So it was a great idea, and we loved it. We had great times there, all right. Learned how to use the computer there as well.
What were the courses?
They were called back to work courses, whatever kind of job you wanted to get back into, whether it was the one you were originally in. And a lot of it was learning computers as well, because obviously there was no computers when a lot of us had left work. And this was to do the basics with computers as well, yeah. I had a thing, actually, we were identity company at that stage, where I went around to companies, did ID badges for them. I had a big machine, a laminator and everything.
What's next? What do you look forward to?
10 years.
Yes. You guys will live long and healthy to 100. So by the time you're 96, this podcast will make money, and then we'll give loyalty to you.
No, I think the most important thing is to remain healthy. I enjoy what I'm doing at the moment. Maybe set a few more challenges. I don't know. We're going to go on holidays. We're going to enjoy our time. We do have one medium-term objective, and it started off as, again, a little bit of a story and a joke. There's a 30-year difference between Brendan and myself. Our younger son, I was 30 when he was born. So I will be 80 in 2027, and we're putting money in a box at the moment. We may have a few flag days. I might be on to you again, Nicole. We're going to Australia to his 50th birthday in 2027. That's one of the objectives. That's on the bucket list.
Yeah, and we'll both be 80 that year too. So we're going to have a celebration in Australia.
Before we finish, is there anything else you want to share with the audience?
I don't know if it was Oscar Wilde said it. I still think at 76, somebody says, what's the most important thing in life? And I think it still is to love and to be loved.
How about you, Pat?
Yeah, and I am just so glad that we have our health, that we can get up every day and go out every day. And I had to, when we were in Australia with our daughter and a friend were with us, Neve and Fiona, and we went down to Sydney with them, and they brought us all around Sydney. They were very good. They really were very good bringing us around Sydney. I think they thought when they went home that we wouldn't be able to find our way around, that we would get lost, particularly going through Singapore, which we didn't. We managed quite well when they were there as well. So having our health.
As I shared in the beginning of the episode, this was the day when my sister called and told me about my grandpa. After talking to her, I continued the episode with John and Pat. I asked John a very emotional but real question. John, are you afraid of death now? Where do you think we will go after this world? And here is his response.
Irish language. When we were at school, we did everything through Irish. And this is Laur or Niha. It's a prayer book. That's 100 years old. Prayers are in Irish.
And do you still pray?
Oh, yeah. And I go to church either Saturday or Sunday. Pat goes sometimes, but not always. I still go regularly. I had a belief as a young man that my dad would never die. So he died, and then subsequently my mum died, Pat's mum died, Pat's dad died. And there were people that you were moving around with like we are now, and the next thing, mortality is proved to you. But a custom which is in rural Ireland is when somebody dies, they get a little photograph of the person that's dead. My granny, my uncles, my aunts, people that we knew. Mortuary cards. Get them from the bedroom for you. And just to show you what, people keep a record of people that have passed away. You have a memory of them. And there's a little prayer to them. And obviously we all assemble at the funeral. You sympathise with the family. As my uncle, my mum's brother, who lived in the farm where my mum was born in Galway.
Wow, 1918. Wow. It's like a memory card to remember the people who lived. So it's a tradition in Ireland.
Yeah, it's a Catholic thing.
Do you think faith have a impact on you, on how you see?
Yeah. definitely.
How do you feel?
I think what it does, first of all, as kids, it was discipline. You know, we got washed on a Saturday and we put new clothes on a Sunday, and we went and we met people that we would never meet during the week. And we noticed that when we went back on holidays, you meet people that you wouldn't meet other than at Mass. Because not everybody goes to the pub, not everybody goes shopping at the same time. But I believe, and I studied maths to a fairly high degree, and mathematically the world is balanced. There's a balance to it.
Yeah.
And I think what you call it, God, Muhammad, whether you're Hindu, Muslim, whatever, like I said, the vicar when we were in college drew the circle and a little circle in the middle, and all the little rivers eventually go to the ocean. So it's an energy.
Yeah.
I think somebody that has it maybe has a little bit more resilience, a little bit more ability to think laterally, because like you're asking me, you know, no matter what religion you are, somebody challenges it. Not to think that you're stupid or things like that, but you want to know a little bit more about it because it's part of me.
Yes.
It's a very positive thing. Is it always right? No. Has there been a lot of wrongdoings? Well, my belief is God didn't do the wrongdoings. The people who felt that God represented them, they did the wrong, not God. You know, the pedophiles in the church, the murderers, the robbers and things like that, they're not God. You know, some people in a narrow strip would say, well, if God is so good, why doesn't he stop these people doing bad? That's not what the world and life and reality is about. God is about a being, that an energy we believe in. And what happens when I die this evening? Or I die in 100 years from this evening, or 10 years from this evening. The physical person that I am no longer exists. It's gone. But mathematically, they have proved if you weigh the body at death and immediately after it, it's 22 grams lighter. Physically, mathematically calculatable. Some people call that spirit, soul, energy. I don't know. I'm not qualified, or have I done enough research theologically or physically, but mathematically, it's a loss of weight. People will tell you that don't believe it's moisture that leaves the body. Moisture doesn't leave as quick as that. There's some part of somebody 22 grams less instantaneously as they die. What is it? I don't know. But it's a question mark.
Yeah.
So somebody might come along and say to me, Johnny, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I'll say, geez, I never thought that. You know, that they weight him without his shoes or without his knickers or without his socks or without whatever.
Yeah.
So faith is that you believe in something that could be positive. It's an escape. It's a challenge. It's a discipline. So I think all those things are good.
Yes.
You know.
I think faith, as you say, is different thing to different people. But
Absolutely.
having believed something that's greater than you, I think it's a great thing. Because how did we all come upon?
You see, evolution, they're now, you know, they had a clone of a sheep. They have also now created a cell, a human cell, that could become embryonic. A lot of people would say you shouldn't interfere with the natural order. But if the natural order is to be protected, you know, you have to interfere with it. How does it happen? And I think, like, cancer to me is an unsolved thing. People get cancer, they get a bit of remission. I don't know anybody that has had cancer that hasn't died eventually.
Yeah.
Would they have died without it? Yes, they would, of course. Would they have lived longer without it? I think they would. So if you're positive, and you believe in positivity and you think, faith is then easily identified as positive. But like I say, the media today wants negativity. Negativity is more sensational.
Exactly.
Than positivity.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And good to see all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Bye.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. Before you leave, if you love this episode, please stay tuned for our next one. If you haven't done so, please follow Beyondhood in your favorite podcast listening app. Or you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you found this conversation inspirational or interesting or valuable, chances are you did, since you're still listening. Would you do me a personal favor, a 6-second favor? Share it on your social, email, or tell a friend. Tell a person you know who can benefit from this conversation, who you think will be inspired by our Beyonder, who is navigating how to age with grace and motivation so that they can join and be part of our mission. You guys can discuss. When a podcast becomes a chat becomes an action. Then we're closer to create an intergenerational community through one chat at a time. Lastly, if you love this episode, please support by being a member of the podcast so that I can keep looking for new Beyonder and continue the show.
Childhood, adolescent, adulthood, and